Hello, caffeinators, and I just want to say welcome back if you haven't been here in a while. Just thank you so much for stopping back by to watch this video. I know that there's been some delays in me putting out new content, so I'm just very grateful for your patience and your support during the temporary medical emergencies that my family had. And that includes flu for the entire family, 4 children and 2 adults, and we have a pending tooth extraction for my 3-year-old on Monday. So again, just thank you very much for your patience, and I look forward to seeing all of your comments in beneath this video. And let's go ahead and get started. So if you're watching this video, you're probably hoping to pick up some tips about starting or repositioning your freelance business. So I just want to reassure you that you are definitely in the right place. I try not to make my videos too long. So this particular video will be kind of the tip of the iceberg and hopefully give you some really good starting points as you seek to really start or reposition your own freelance content business. So what we're covering today. How did you get here? Just think about that for a second. All right, it's going to become relevant on the very next slide, I promise. But how did you get here? Then we're going to move into defining your business. And then, yes, you do have a brand, whether you cultivate it intentionally or not, you have one. And then we're going to look at defining your client and then creating an effective qualification strategy. You're like, qualifying who? You'll find out. So how did you get here? Sometimes your business just evolves. You're either working from home full time or you're freelance writing part time, and you've told some people about it. You've gotten some referrals from past or current clients, and you just kind of end up doing a little bit of everything. So almost all of us have gotten referrals that weren't quite right, but you took them anyway because they were referrals and you wanted to get paid for some work and it makes you feel good. Sometimes people find us on social media and like we feel compelled to find a way to work with these people because, again, for many of you, it feels like you can't find the right clients at all. So even just finding any clients feels like you're making progress, but it does cause our business to kind of evolve in ways that we may not have previously intended. And what usually ends up happening after a while, once the excitement of having a paying client wears off a little bit, you realize that you're actually doing work that you don't love for rates that you're not happy with. And this will be something that happens in every single type of business. As a solopreneur or solo operator with a new or small business, you're still figuring out your why. And sometimes that also directly ties into your how. So for content creators, the how is the types of content or the industries that we choose to write in. So if you are in a position right now with a client where you're like, man, I took the referral and now I kind of wish I hadn't. I kind of wished I had been priced too high for them and they've taken it. You're not alone. It happens to all of us. So I have a personal experience that I can tie to this. So like I said, you're not alone. So now you at least know me. I took on a social media management client based on a referral. And this was social media management, 1 post a day to Facebook and Instagram with images each day. So I'm using the Hootsuite app, and I'm using the free account, so I'm not paying for it at least. But I priced the client a bit higher because I was kind of like, okay, well, she probably won't pay this. It's a small business. It's a brand new fitness gym. which is no longer my specialty, but I do have past performance, past experience in the fitness industry because I used to be a personal trainer and I used to be a fitness competitor, and I gobbled up all the information that I possibly could about that to help me win. So it was pretty effective. And the person who referred me remembered that I had that past experience in addition to my current experience as a content marketer. What I ended up discovering after about the first few weeks was that I don't enjoy just social media management. I don't mind offering it as an upsell, particularly if I'm creating blog posts, or not blog posts, but creating social media posts for blog posts that I've written, or social media posts to promote a new ebook that I've written. I don't mind doing it as an upsell, but I don't enjoy doing it purely as a standalone service. So I've decided I'm not going to offer that anymore. And while I did quote a rate that I was happy with, I didn't have the two-edged sword of, a bad rate and not being happy with the work, but it is work that I don't find satisfying. I know that some people do, so this is not against social media management as a service. I've just come to realize that it's not for me, and that's okay. And that's important because now I know in the future that I will not take on any social media management contracts that just want to do social media management. And that's important for my own business development and my own business evolution. So, before you do anything else, you need to define what it is that you offer. You may do other things, but what are your core services? What are you positioning yourself around? It's like the social media management. In a pinch, if, I don't know, if my church asked me to do social media management for them, I would say, yes, it's my church. I am not going to advertise it on my website. I'm not going to put it on my LinkedIn or in any of my other profiles that I offer standalone social media management. But if someone asks and I choose to say yes, then fine. So that's what I feel falls under the category of other things. Like, you may do other things, but what are your core services? Is it blog posts and ebooks? Is it blog posts, ebooks, and white papers and case studies? What is it that you're offering, that you're centering your marketing around? Like I said, it doesn't stop you from doing other things, but how are you positioning yourself? How are you positioning your one person business? What types of content are you promoting as your specialty? And you also should look at your past experience. You want to look at what you love writing about, what you're interested in. You want to look at your past experience to see if there's any way you can tie that together. You want to take a look at your network to see if there's any way that you can leverage your network as it is to find work in any of the things that you've noted that you love writing about. And then you can move from there. Okay, so you have a brand. You may not realize it, but your brand is on your website. Your brand is on your LinkedIn. Your brand can even be on your Contently profile, your ClearVoice profile, or your Upwork profile, or even your Fiverr profile. So I want you to think about all of the places that you've put your name and basically said, I'm a writer. Is that presenting a unified message? Like, if I Google your name and I find all of these various platforms with your name, are they going to communicate the same thing to me? So you want to work on defining your unique selling proposition. And this is what's going to make you stand out from other writers and content marketers in your niche. It's going to be what makes people pick you over other writers. This is how you're able to charge higher rates when you can effectively communicate your USP. Price is no longer the defining factor. All businesses have a ceiling on their budget. That's true. So you may be working with somebody, or somebody wants to work with you who just doesn't have the budget for it. If you can find another reason and they're, to work with them, and they're really, easy to work with, and it's in an industry that you're very interested in getting into, or an industry you need more recent examples of your work or recent samples of your work, then you may consider working with them depending on where their budget ceiling actually is. But If their budget has room for you and it's between you and the next person, and your unique selling proposition appeals to your prospect more than the other writers, they're going to pick you. So you want to figure out what that USP is, and it might be a few, but you don't want to have a crowded message. You want to pull them in and kind of make them short statements that you can kind of rattle off, and you want to infuse those brand pillars in all of your content everywhere. So I'm working on it myself, but now if you look at my LinkedIn and you look at my new website, defythestatusquo.com, you'll see that I am presenting a unified message to people who find me on LinkedIn and to people who, maybe click along and go to my website. Once you've defined your USP, and it's a little easier to do once you have a few clients, but even if you don't, you really have to focus on turning down work that isn't a good fit. And this is all part of your business development, and it's always hardest at the beginning when you feel like you should just take whoever's willing to pay you, but it dilutes your brand. So for me, with the social media management, with this particular client, it's not a B2B client. She owns a gym. She's a really nice lady, but she owns a gym here local, and she doesn't fit into my ideal client profile at all. And it's just, like I said, it's not work that I love. So I don't have her on my website. And that's just because I reserve the best possible examples or samples of my work to appeal to more clients like those. So yes, you're going to have to consider that you're going to need to turn down work that isn't a good fit. And price is not the only reason, as I've experienced recently. Price is not the only reason to turn someone down. And this is when we roll into defining your client. Yes, this again, we're going to talk about buyer personas until the cows come home. And it's not so much the very rigid definition that seems to be out there for marketing as far as what a buyer persona is, but there is some advantage to writing it down. You need to be able to visualize your ideal client in order to find them. You have to know what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes it's the devil's in the details. There might be something small in the details that you've glossed over that you didn't realize was important. We are content creators, so it makes sense that when we get our thoughts out of our heads and onto paper or onto the screen, it helps us better understand exactly who we're looking for. So once you've figured that out, the next question you need to answer is, how does your ideal client find freelancers? Do they press their network for connections? Do they go to places like Upwork or ClearVoice? Do they post job ads on LinkedIn or in other places looking for contract content creators? You need to know that, because that's where you're going to want to look, and that's where you're going to want to be if possible. If you know they look on ClearVoice or Upwork, then if you don't have a ClearVoice or Upwork profile, then you could potentially be missing out. If they normally put out posts on LinkedIn asking if there's anybody who can help them and you're not active on LinkedIn, you're going to miss those posts. Do you have anyone in your network you can leverage for a warm intro once you've identified some ideal clients? That's always a really good one. I actually used someone from my previous life as a military service member and as a government contractor. And hopefully I will be getting 3 warm intros to government contracting companies who offer language services, which is what my previous industry was. I was a Persian Farsi linguist who worked for the government. And I told her that I was interested in writing white papers for government contractors in our industry to use as part of their government marketing. So obviously very specific, very niche. It could turn into nothing, but she said that she had 3 CEOs that she could introduce me to. And it just popped into my head, hey, I should ask her, because she's a CEO. Her business isn't quite big enough to outsource something like white paper creation, but she knows businesses who are. And then yes, social media. You got to be there or be square. No, that's not fair. But if you know that your ideal client finds freelancers in multiple places and social media is not your bag and you want to look elsewhere, then do so. But if if it's very techy and they spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and you hate LinkedIn, you're probably just going to have to learn it. Um, and that's, another set of videos that I can do. I've done a lot of research into LinkedIn and I'm pretty determined to make it work for me this year. But yes, so whatever place you don't like, if there's another place you can be, like if you know that there are industry events that you'll get invited to that they're also at, then you're perfectly fine in foregoing the social media. However, I will say that if you do attend events, LinkedIn is a great segue. Like, oh yeah, we've talked for a couple minutes. Do you mind if I add you on LinkedIn? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course. Go ahead and add me on LinkedIn. And you've just neatly established a connection. They remember your face. Send the link. So again, just try and keep in mind that even if you despise social media, it's a tool like anything else. And if you refuse to use the tools that will bring you the most ROI, you're potentially doing harm to your business. All right, this is a big one, and I am really, really excited to share it with you because I wish somebody had shared it with me a long time ago. So, big newsflash. You will get more no's than yeses in this business. As a matter of fact, you want to get to the no's as quickly as possible so you can move on. You want to get more no's than yeses because if every single person you interacted with wanted to work with you, exactly how much time would you have? Zero, because there would be so many people. You are a solo business, or a solo person business. So there's only so many clients and so much work that you can take on before you look around and realize you've been sitting at your desk for 40 hours and this isn't why you wanted to freelance write in the first place. Well, it's not why I want to freelance write. So I would be pretty upset if I turned around and was like, oh man, 40 hours this week. I would be furious. But yeah, so you want to get more no's than yeses. You want to get those no's as quickly as possible because you need to cross that person off of your list and move on. Now, they may become a referral later, so I'm not saying burn bridges, but if you are able to mentally be like, okay, this person can't afford me, or I heard this person is got like OCD with all of their stuff, so I don't want to touch it because they're going to have me do 15 edits on a 500-word blog post, then you know to check them off. If they really want to work with you, but they're in an industry that's not a good fit for how you're trying to position your business, that could also be a no. So with a solid qualification strategy, you'll start giving no's as well. And I really want all of you to listen up. This is for you in the back. Just because someone says they want to work with you does not make it your responsibility to find a way to work with them if they don't meet your standards. You can say no. Them throwing their project or emergency in your lap does not mean it has to stay there. You can give it back. You could put this proverbial emergency on the floor, but you don't have to hold on to it. Just because they say it to you or write it to you does not make it your responsibility to work with them. They need to find a way to work with you. And if the answer is no, because I do B2B and they sell yoga water bottles, then the answer is just no. Now, if they can, if we talk and I find out that, hey, they do have kind of a B2B slant because they want to sell their yoga merchandise inside yoga studios, that's B2B. I could probably see my way there because I do like yoga. So so sometimes you can kind of work those things out, but if it's a firm no for you for whatever reason, let it be a no, because after that point, if you accept it anyway, you're going to regret it. So let's look at what it takes to create a clear set of qualifications. You want to stick to your principles. So like I said, if it's a no, if you get that bad feeling in your stomach, I had that bad feeling in January and I didn't listen to it and I got into this whole stressful thing with a client, then you're going to, like I said, you're going to regret it. You didn't, whether you quit your job or you're thinking about quitting your job or you've retired or wherever you're at in life right now, you did not start freelance writing to compromise your principles. Okay. So by sticking to your principles, you will avoid nightmare clients. It's a quote from Oprah, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says something like, when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. So if they've shown you that they're kind of crazy or that they want to talk to you at all hours of the day and you don't like that, then just take that as a forecast for what the entire business relationship will be like, because they're not just suddenly going to become an ideal client when they start paying you. Keep your pay rates where you want them to be. Do not compromise on price unless there is some very serious, attractive reason to do so. So like I said, if my church asked me to do social media management, I would do that for free. That's my church. I like them. They brought me food after I had my babies, and they help, they're really nice people. So I would do that. That is my attractive reason to not charge them anything. But again, people like to ask freelancers for free stuff, and I have absolutely no compulsion to lower my rates for anybody without a valid reason. Some example qualification standards might include, is this a client in an industry I want to specialize in or that I already specialize in? Because remember, if you collect clients in similar industries, then your knowledge base becomes a USP. It becomes that unique selling proposition. You have experience writing about X. So it's good for them because they're like, oh, I have an experienced writer, but it's good for you because you have to do a lot less research because you're building on things that you've already learned. Another qualification standard. It's a good one. What is their budget for this sort of project? I've done this before where I've thrown out numbers because I'm like, I'm really busy. And they ask me, they'll say, so what's your rate? And I'll say, I can give you some ballpark numbers, but in order to, really give you a specific rate, I'd have to know your details. But I can tell you for blog posts, if it's about 1,000 words, I charge X number of dollars. And if that doesn't make them like choke on their coffee, then, maybe we're in a good place. If they ask you for a rate for projects that require a lot of planning, like white papers or case studies or ebooks, any big projects like that where you can't really pin it down, avoid even giving a ballpark number because you don't want to pin yourself in. Even if you give yourself a range and you think it's a lot, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, a case study. You're like, oh, a case study. Like I'll have to do like what, 2 interviews, maybe just 1 interview, and, and then write up the content. It should just be like a few pages. Okay. Yeah. So my ballpark number for that is $1,200, let's say. And then they're like, oh, okay, great. Because we've got 5 people for you to interview for this case study. And now you're going to have to backtrack because I'm not interviewing 5 people and writing a case study for $1,200. I hope you don't either, because that is a long time. That is a long time, and you should definitely be charging more. So keep that in mind. So for those complex projects, don't give a rate. Don't give a ballpark number. Tell them you need more details because you don't want to have to backtrack later. If you do, backtrack because, again, you deserve to be paid a good rate. But if you can, avoid pinning yourself in, okay? And then ask yourself, is this the sort of content that I want to write? Is it? So for me, like with the person I reached out to yesterday, I told her I wanted to get into writing white papers. It could be that I do this one white paper and I hate it, but I never have to do it again. If I can get one and I experience it, maybe I love it and I decide I don't even want to do blog posts anymore. I just want to do white papers. But that'll be my decision to make. So those are some examples of qualification standards. You may have some others, like if you are in a sustainability niche, you might want to know if they've got a green supply chain, if they're, carbon free, or what is it, like net carbon free or something. That might be something that matters to you. You want to know if they, support a diverse workplace. You want to know if they're involved in their community. You want to work with businesses that get involved in the community and work really hard to make it a better place for the people living there as well as themselves for working and living there. So those are other examples of qualification standards that aren't necessarily tied to a monetary value or even tied to your abilities and your specialties. So consider those things. And I really do advise you to write them down. They will change over time. Your qualification standards will change over time, but keep in mind, these are your qualification standards. So you're kind of flipping the script now where they're like, oh, I have this project that I want you to do. And you're like, no, we've got to check off the list. We've got to check off the list and see if we're a good fit to work together. So let's take a moment because I'm not going to write up your blog post in 24 hours. Let's take a moment and see if you and I are a good fit working together on this content project. And so this is where you kind of get an opportunity to figure those things out. And do not be afraid to say, after taking some time to think about it, because I wouldn't really give an answer on the phone. But I would say, after taking some time to think about it, I don't really think that we're going to be a good fit. You could also say that you've had a longstanding client come up with an emergency project or whatever. But I would just normally be honest and say, at this time, I don't really think that I'm a good fit for your project. But if you'd like, you can always offer a consolation prize. But if you like, I can definitely put out a note to the writers in my network to see if anybody would be interested. If you'd like, I can pass on your email address. And that can kind of, soften the blow. But keep in mind, these are your qualification standards. So they will change, but it's up to you as the solopreneur, as the solo business owner, to uphold them. So the only person you're going to have to blame is yourself if you write down your qualification standards, then ignore your qualification standards, and then get wrapped up with a nightmare client. So keep that in mind. Now, don't get me wrong. If you do get wrapped up with a nightmare client, come back into the content coffee break. Let's talk it out. You can message me privately if you want, or on LinkedIn or wherever, and we could talk about it and we could see how to get you unstuck. But that will be a lesson for you. Just like I had my lesson in January, should have followed my gut, and I'm not going to ignore it anymore. So finally, you have to figure out what you want. You need to know who you are and what you want for your business. Where do you want this to go? Most of us got started working part-time, just flying by the seat of our pants, just kind of made decisions as they needed to be made, but not really planning things out. Like, raise your hand if you did a business plan. All right, put your hands down because you probably didn't. Don't lie. No, I'm kidding. If you did do a business plan, good for you. And if you did, I'd really like to see what that looked like. So be sure to comment on it. If you didn't, just join the club. But if you take the time to plan out your business now, right? Because you can always plan. If you take the time to plan out your business now, you'll experience sustainable growth with clients that you love, and that will help you avoid burnout. And that, my friends, my caffeinators, is the end of this presentation. I hope that you found it useful. Feel free, of course, to go back, replay your favorite parts, but please go into the comment section here and let me know what you found to be most valuable. Was there a particular section that you'd like to explore more? And don't be afraid. If you want, you can post your own posts in the group. Just if it's a question about the video, make sure that you include the link to the video for anybody who hasn't read it and they haven't watched the video and they see your post. But I would really like to talk about this. Business development is something that is often neglected for freelancers, and it's a big reason why I made the content coffee break. I get messages every day in LinkedIn asking me questions about, topics related to just this thing. And I feel like this, this sort of gathering, this sort of environment where it's closed off from everybody, makes it a bit more private and a little easier to talk about. So please, comments, we definitely want to have discussion about this. I look forward to interacting with you there.